Tech Cocktail Conversations, candid insights from startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from around the globe.
I have two early-stage startups, which serendipitously ended up being representative of the two sides of me. So my professional side is represented by my startup, If We Ran the World, which comes out of the fact that I'm a naturally very action-oriented person. And so I observed that the single biggest pool of untapped natural resource in this world is human good intentions that never translate into action. And so If We Ran the World is a very simple Web Meets World platform that turns good intentions into action, one micro-action at a time. Then my personal side is represented by my other startup, MakeLoveNotPorn, which derives from the fact that I date younger men. They tend to be men in their 20s. And I encountered through that, very directly and personally, the real ramifications of the creeping ubiquity of hardcore pornography in our culture. So we now live in an era where, essentially, because we're a society where everybody has sex but nobody ever talks about it, hardcore porn has become, by default, the sex education of today. And that's not necessarily a very good thing. So MakeLoveNotPorn.com is a site that posts the myths of hardcore porn and balances them with the reality. The construct is porn world, real world. This is what happens in the porn world, this is what happens in the real world. And that has received such an extraordinary response since I launched it 3 years ago at TED, that in May, my team and I will be launching MakeLoveNotPorn.tv, which will be the next iteration. I am planning to take every dynamic that exists out there in social media currently and apply them to the one area that no social media network or platform has ever gone or will ever dare go, which is sex. I want to socialize real-world sex. I would like to make real-world sex socially acceptable and socially shareable in a way that nobody else has ever achieved. So I've got a pretty big goal, but I can promise you that my team and I have something very interesting with which to deliver it. It's kind of a two-in-one hiring philosophy, which is that I demand extraordinary. I only hire extraordinary, and so I'll work with extraordinary talent wherever I find it. So they have to be extraordinarily brilliant at what they do, but they also have to be very, very nice people. Great and nice is my hiring philosophy. You cannot have one without the other. You can't be brilliant and not a team player and able to work with, motivate, and inspire everybody else around you. So it boils down to great and nice. My favorite part of startup life is exemplified by my favorite quote of all time, which is Alan Kay, who said, "In order to predict the future, you have to invent it." What I love about operating a startup is that you can invent the future. You can decide what you want the future to be, and you can make it happen, which is exactly what I and my team are doing, and that's what I absolutely love. To some extent, the single biggest challenge I've faced is that I represent the double whammy of unfundability. I'm female and I'm older. And that puts all sorts of obstacles in my way in terms of access to the funding that I have needed for both of my startups, despite the fact that I've put my own savings into them, but I've absolutely had to find seed funding as well. That has been enormously challenging. There's a third unfundability obstacle with Make Love Not Porn, which is every obstacle a tech entrepreneur encounters with a startup, have a startup dealing with sex and absolutely triple them. So that's made it even more difficult. But I'm a huge believer in those people who say it can't be done should get out of the way of those people doing it. So the bigger the challenges, the more determined I am to overcome them. And the single dynamic that most motivates me, and forgive me because I am going to use a four-letter word, and feel free to edit it out, but the single biggest dynamic that will make me absolutely do what I want to do is I'm going to fucking well show you. The one piece of advice that I would pass on to every single startup founder, entrepreneur here in this room and at South by Southwest is know that the only person who can make things happen for you is you. It's very easy at an event like this to get carried away with the idea that it's all about networking, it's all about contacts, it's all about connections. You'll meet somebody. Actually, in the time it took me to get If We Ran the World funded, I encountered lots of what my startup is designed to address. Lots of good intentions, very little action. At the end of the day, the only person who can make your startup happen is you, and you need to know that, and you need to act on it accordingly.